Good afternoon, everyone. Looks like we are on time, and thank you all for joining us. Welcome to our final Risk and Assurance meeting for 2023. What a year it's been. If we could start with the karakia, please. Thank you, everyone. All right, we have no apologies today, but we have Councillors Olsen and Councillors Proctor joining via Zoom. Thank you, gentlemen. We have no public participation and no late items. Do we have any declarations of interest? None. Right, moving into confirmation of minutes. We have meeting minutes from our meeting on the 16th of August, both the committee meeting and then the in-committee minutes. If I could get someone to move by Mayor and second by Councillor Young. All in favour? Thank you. So we have a reasonably short agenda, and it's my intention that we are just going to, just for a bit of fun, we're going to rejig the order slightly. We will start with item 6.1 so we can hear from Clint Ramu, and then we will move into 6.4, which is the Audit Action Monitoring Report, and then it's my intention that we will adjourn briefly and have a council-only session with Clint, just briefly, and then we will recommence and deal with the remaining items, unless anyone has any objection to that. Excellent. So we will then move to item 6.1, which is the Audit Management Letter for 2022-23 annual report. If I could invite you up, Clint, and I think Peishan as well. So this is our audit management letter that wasn't yet complete at the time the annual report was adopted at our committee meeting, our council meeting on the, someone will remind me of the date, a couple of weeks ago. Thanks. But yeah, over to you, Clint, and Peishan.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this is Chen Ramu, very familiar face from Audit New Zealand, our Audit General, the Audit Director, to present our Audit Management Letter for 22-23 Annual Report. As you're aware, this is being tabled at the meeting, and so Chen will talk us through his presentation.
Thanks, Peishan. Kia ora, everybody. Thanks again for having me here. Just to say, I have not yet issued the draft management report, but the items that I'll talk to this afternoon are included in that, and I'll share that with management this afternoon on the basis that there's no surprises. So just to take you through what the contents of that report were. There we go. So just the presentation this afternoon is around just give you an update on the audit report, where we've landed with some of our key areas of focus, which we've included in our audit report, audit plan. Some of the unadjusted misstatements, I'll talk to that. The misstatements that were adjusted, some of the status of prior year recommendations, just declare some independence matters to you, and then any outstanding matters with regard to the audit itself. So, Chairs, you'll be aware on the 25th, Council adopted the annual report, and the report had three aspects to it that was included. First was our audit opinion on the financial information, and that was an unqualified audit opinion, so that's really a good space to be, effectively meaning that the amounts that were reported in your balance sheet, income statement, your funded impact statements, funded impact statements, etc., were all materially correct. So we found no issues with that. Also linked to that, the controls and systems in place, we could take reliance for some of that work. The second item was around the performance reporting. That was qualified, but the qualification related primarily to last year's. In your performance reporting, you have to report comparatives. So, like you do for financials, the qualification related to last year, and that was around the number of complaints coming through the call center. So back up until January 2022, Council had some business rules in place with Palmerston North City Council for after-hour calls. What we were unable to get comfort over was whether all the calls coming in were actually logged and then transferred to Council. What was happening was that if a call came in, the first call came in for one fault, it was logged and that was transferred. If someone else down the street phoned in as well, that wasn't logged, and we couldn't trace it back to whether it was a water issue, a stormwater, or a wastewater complaint. And so the issue around completeness was always a problem for us. And for a number of years, Council changed those business rules with PNCC in January 2022. Again, it wasn't in place for the whole year then, so we couldn't take comfort out of it. So we've had to qualify the comparative number, but from 1 July 2022 to 30 June 2023, the system worked. We were able to reconcile the numbers to a material level. So this year's number, as reported in your annual report, is materially correct and unqualified. So that's a good space to be. Next year, we'll have no qualifications. We'll just have a straightforward, clean audit report. That's, I think, everyone's wish. The third part of it was an emphasis of matter paragraph, and that's just relating to the three waters, and it's standard across all councils in New Zealand. It's just to draw the reader's attention to the fact that council currently is including assets that could potentially transfer to a new entity, and just so the reader understands that, and there's liabilities, we can't quantify it. Council can't quantify the impact at this stage, so there's no numbers. We're just saying be aware of it. In normal circumstances, we would say to council, move all those assets to a held for sale or held for transfer, keep it as current assets, not as fixed assets. We don't know the reasons, don't have enough clarity and certainty around it to ask for that. So we're not qualifying and just saying be aware of it, reader, when you read these accounts. In terms of the key focus areas going into this audit, committee members, there were 5 that we'd identified. One was the revaluation of property, plant and equipment, and that's in the revaluation year. The second was a fair value assessment of PPE in a non-revaluation year. There's the standard one about risk of management override of internal controls. So that's, again, standard across all councils. There was the complaints and response times for performance measures, DIA ones. And then the fifth one, was the impact of the three waters. So just talking to the first area focus around the revaluation of property, plant and equipment. So this year, council only revalued the solid waste assets. And I think that's, we're getting into a rhythm here of doing valuations every 3 years, I'm hoping, for key assets. In the past, it was valued every year, and that was a lot of effort for council officials and also for us as auditors. So this year, in the cycle was solid waste, and we audited that and concluded through engagement with the valuers as well in reviewing the reports and doing our own alternative testing that the balance was materially stated. For the second one, which is the fair value assessment of PPE, so let's just jump into bullet point 3 under the outcomes recommendation. The purpose of that exercise is that because you're not undertaking a full valuation, does the carrying value on your balance sheet represent the fair value in the market? In your case, it would be replacement cost predominantly. And again, in that instance, council engaged an independent expert to undertake some of that assessments. We engaged with the expert and had some robust discussions and to-in and fro-in on that to get comfort over the numbers. As an alternative, we use some indices that's been approved for both the roading and the infrastructure assets. And our conclusion there was that the assets were materially correct, and represented fair value. The one item coming out of that was around the completeness of data and the underlying records to support these balances. So the one asset balance that's on your balance sheet is the land under roads. It's about $23 million of assets, and it's about just having records for that. So that's an asset class that's not valued. It's carried at cost. And again, we just say it's, as part of our audit testing, we're asking, well, do we have an inventory of that land? And, what was it originally purchased at? So that we can tie it back to some records, and that wasn't readily available. And again, it would be one of our recommendations coming out of it, that it's some inventory done on it. Will it hold up future audits? No, it's not a material balance for us. It's 23 million. It's just good record keeping. The second item around complaints and response times, I've spoken to that. I think the one thing that we would be recommending going forward around that is about just regular reconciliations between data coming from PNCC and what's on the customer CRM system here at council. That would be a useful exercise to do quarterly. Again, just a good control so that we don't come to the end of the year and try and work out, well, have we got everything or not? You can deal with it through the year. So, but other than that, there was a lot of work that went into that, and I want to acknowledge the work of the wider council, outside finance for assisting us with that. Three Waters, as I've alluded to, we had an emphasis of matter, nothing to note there. And then the risk of management override, no issues noted, no concerns to raise there. I think the point I just want to make overall around performance reporting, took a lot of time this year. It seemed to go from valuations to performance reporting. It's about the underlying supporting information for the reported results becomes really important in terms of audit evidence. Ultimately, we're giving assurance to ratepayers that that's the reported result and it's what evidence is there to support it. And I use the example, it's no different to a financial statement number. We'd expect there to be a general ledger account that has all the transactions in it. It's the same rules apply for a balance sheet, a general ledger account. We'd expect there to be reconciliation, segregation of duties, all those normal controls and systems, the same would apply for performance reporting. So it's no different. And I think, it's building that culture into the organization that it's going to be in your accountability document. Not that people don't take it seriously, they do take it seriously, and we saw evidence of that. It's just that, it's going to end up somewhere. Does it come to this council, this committee? How often does it go to council so that you can front up to council and say, yep, hand on my heart, that's the right number. Too many buttons. Then just on to unadjusted misstatements. So at the end of the audit, we look at errors that we've picked up or issues and determine whether it's material or not. There's 3 there. I won't go to them individually. They're not material, I can tell you that. So your accounts are still materially correct. Management decided not to adjust for it. And I think it's a good judgment call to make on these things, because you can adjust for, like you take the first item, it sounds like it's just 3 accounts to hit. But when you're trying to wash that through the annual report, it can get messy and expose you to risk. So, we're happy to work with management on that, but it's important that as a committee that there were some errors. The impact on your P&L, your profit and loss, excuse my whole language, it's $121,000. It's not material for us. And then on the balance sheet, it's difference really between assets and liabilities. The last one, for example, is just a classification of 271. So it's still an asset. It's not going to break the bank, so to speak. That's where it's shown on the balance sheet. Oh, thank you. And then adjusted misstatements. So we had a few that management did elect to adjust. That resulted in a 710K operating deficit impact and the 710,000 decrease in assets. So that was to do predominantly with the carbon credits adjustment. So again, it was a bit of a change in policy. Management did indicate to us last year that they will adopt the market value for that, and that's been reflected there. And then there were a number of disclosure errors that were adjusted as well as the audit progress. There were 7 around financial related disclosures and then 11 performance related disclosures. And that comes to my point about supporting information, etc. But then we picked up a few of those items. Right, so the last one, no, not the last one, so a couple of slides. Just around the summary of recommendations. So there was a bit of TBCs there. I think I'll just give you an update because we have finalized this. One of the exercises that we're trying to go through is there are some matters here that go back to 2016. Many of us in this room worked around here, were born, but we weren't around here that time. And it's about trying to close those things off and also to consolidate some of these recommendations because they kind of speak to the same thing, and it makes it very difficult for us to come in and clear it out, for management to address it. So overall, the number of recommendations outstanding, or open recommendations, I should say, at the end of June is 22. Of that, 9 have been raised in the current financial year. And the ones I've listed alongside there are around asset classification, asset capitalizations. There's some lease agreement registers, details around that so we can get completeness around it. There's some payroll master file changes review that we're encouraging to be put in place. The PO, purchase order clearing account, is a new item this year that we've picked up. So there's a couple of these recommendations that are new, 9 of them, as I say, of the 22. I do want to say, however, that of the old recommendations, 8 of them are in progress. There's work being done on it. There's progress being done. We will follow up on those at the next audit and close them off. So there's things like the sensitive expenditure policy that has come through to council. It's been through to ELT. It's been updated. We understand there's council-wide communications around these things. So those will happen post-balance date. So we haven't closed them off until we see the evidence and come and do some testing either at interim or final next year. So there's a couple of those. The annual report is another one that has come forward from last year. We've seen a lot of progress in that regard this year, i.e. getting the annual report on time. A lot better quality. There's only so much you can do with the measures you have. We've been talking about how that gets addressed in the next LTP round. So there are things where we've seen movement and they're progressing, and then there are a couple that there hasn't been any movement, so I would call them purely open. And that's in the valuation. So when we do the full valuation next year or the next time the real infrastructure assets are valued, we'll be able to close off that. There's one or two items around the IT controls that we've raised that haven't progressed yet. And then there's just one item on the performance reporting about the measures and how that needs to be updated. So, 22 sounds like a lot, and it is. But I think the key takeaway here is that 9 of those are new ones from the audit this year. And 3 were raised at interim and 6 now at final, so no chance for management to address them really. And then the other point is that there's progress been made on the older ones. My real wish is to close off some of the very old ones in the next round in the interim audit. So we come down to a more manageable level that this committee can manage and provide oversight on going forward. Sorry. Okay, then just around the independence, I can just to assure the committee that there's no independence issues that arose during the audit. We will still complete the debenture trust audit, so that is an additional engagement outside the statutory audit that you need to be aware of. And just an update on fees. So our fees that we've agreed was 244. Our actual up until the time I prepared this report, so that was after signing, we were sitting on 276k. Those are the hours that we budgeted for 1.4. The actual hours to date was 1560. So yeah, it's still way in excess of budget, but there's reasons for that. I know from our team we've had quite a bit of learnings. That the new team again, lack of continuity, and I'm hoping that will start to get a bit more settled over the next year, certainly for the LTP and the final audit. That's my desire. So at this stage, I probably will be coming to ask for a small recovery just around the performance reporting, but I'll work through that with Justice Plan and the CEO. So the only items outstanding is our issuing of an opinion on the summary annual report, which we have, and just will finish that off. The debenture trust deed, completing that engagement by the end of this month, and then issuing the final management report. That's me, Chair, and I'm happy to take questions.
Before I open up for questions, I might just pass to Jacinta. You had a few comments you wanted to make? Thank you.
Just a couple of bits in terms of the land under roads, just to assure the table, so that work's happening at the moment. Effectively what that means is we would put the GIS system over our land that sits under roads and then just pull it out so it's visual to everyone. So we didn't do it at the time of the audit just in terms of work pressures and who was available, but that work is being done currently. In relation to SSPs as well, I guess as we work through the long-term plan process and finalise the SSPs, we absolutely are in the process of streamlining the gathering and reporting of information so that becomes more efficient over time as well. So that's part of the work that has started and will fall out of the final SSPs that get agreed for consultation. So just to flag those 2 particular items. And just to mention really from this perspective, it's not an ideal conversation to not have had a chance to go through those conversations in regards to the management letter with Clint and understand them well, understand where our team may have or may not have resolved issues during the audit, but hopefully that's something that going forward we can resolve and get to a better place with.
Paishan, did you have anything further you wanted to add? All right, members, does anyone have any questions for Clint or the team?
Look, sorry, Clint, I need to raise this because obviously this is a topic of considerable discussion amongst the sector and especially councils at the moment in terms of the cost of audits and what is happening in the sector. I mean, we're under considerable financial pressure, as you can imagine, with the economic conditions that we're operating in nowadays, trying to prepare a long-term plan under, some serious constraints around cost increases and depreciation and interest rates, etc., etc. So to see a figure like, more than $250,000 that we're spending on an audit, seems a lot of money that we're ensuring our ratepayers are confident in what we are doing. And I just wonder, from your perspective, are there moves afoot to, try and reduce that cost over time across the sector, or is this the trend that we're going to see, that we're going to have increases? I just did a quick calculation on the difference between the hours that you spent and the hours that were targeted, and it works out about $218 an hour. So it doesn't take much for it to increase significantly in a very short space of time. And I just concerned with us trying to put a plan in place for next year, and that we're already looking at levels of service cuts and things like that. Yet these sorts of things we have no impact on and are increasing. I just need to put that in front of you.
Through your chair, thanks, member. I think, from our side, we obviously aware of the pressure that the sector's on, and in fact beyond the sector. So what are we doing as Audit New Zealand? I can only speak for, not on behalf of the Auditor General. So we're introducing a new audit software tool that's going to focus, the audit effort on the right things. It's a lot more driven by risk, which we do now. But our software at the moment, I suppose to a large extent, is a file management system as opposed to an audit tool. So we've made a big investment in this new tool that will, if you come up with something and myself as a director say that is not material, don't go down that road, there will not be a thing on our audit file that will result in someone going off and doing it, which is a risk. So that will bring, we think, a lot of efficiency into the audit process. It will only be introduced, I think, for council probably 24. The second thing is audit dashboard, just the way we communicating with clients, and sharing information. I think, as we get more comfortable with it, when I say we our clients and our audit teams, there's a lot of benefit to be gained from that. The third thing from our side is around continuity on our audits and trying to retain our staff so that we do have that knowledge that comes through, and then we will be able to keep the fees at an acceptable level. I think with that, we've also got the pressures of inflation. We've got staff increases that we have to marry. So I can't sit here and say, and I'll be foolish to do that, having been a CFO, and say there will be no increase, because it will have to come and we'll just have to pay catch up later. So I don't think we want to be in that space. So we are doing things to try and manage and keep that fee increase at a stable level. But I think, and I've mentioned this before, is that we're coming off the back of a number of years where the fees on a number of our clients have been undercooked. and this is the result of that. Then we get this big spike in late years. There's also all the compliance issues that go with it, like the water reforms, etc. adds to the cost because it's added risk to us. It's a change in legislation, so it's those kind of things. And then I spoke about the performance reporting, which takes up a bigger chunk of the reporting. That's where the focus is moving to performance reporting, less about the finances. People expect the finances to be done. Many people don't understand those financial statements anyway, but they understand what you're delivering. So that's where we put in the effort as well. So those changes add to cost and time and effort. I know it doesn't answer your question, Mia, but those are some, just my observations, if you like.
And I appreciate those observations, Clint. I just know how difficult it is for us to justify to our community in terms of the spend that we do for the money that we, gather from them. And it doesn't seem that long ago that this audit fee figure was $100,000 less than what it is today. And it's certainly within my time here in council. So it has risen significantly, and I know costs have done that. But I think there's a further conversation that needs to be had at a higher level in terms of the way we go forward on this. And I know it is a particular concern to the sector in terms of where we're going and how we're doing it. So appreciate your comments, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bernie. Anyone else with a question? Councillor Grimstone.
I guess I'll follow up from Mayor Bernie a little bit on that. I'm keen, I guess, to see whether you've been able to provide some feedback to Jacinta about efficiencies that could be achieved from the council side of things in terms of reducing the number of hours from preparedness and stuff like that in advance of order. But also picking up on the other point about on your side of the table as well. I don't think local council and our ratepayers should be impacted or paying more because of the loss of efficiency on your side of the table either. If we've contracted services out for anything with a set budget and a set hours, it's reasonably practical that you potentially might meet halfway. And I guess if there are some inefficiencies for whatever reason, on your side of the table, I would have hoped that that was reflective in the negotiation that happens over what the audit fee is. But I'll take it as read that any efficiencies you've identified on our half of the table have been communicated or will be communicated through to Jacinta to lead for next time.
Through you, Chief. Thanks, Councillor. I'll respond to your last comment. Would I come and seek a recovery for everything? Absolutely not. Firstly, if I was a business person, I'd say, I'd come for every cent. But the Office of the Auditor General will not allow that. I can assure you that every cent I come and ask for in addition to the agreed fee is scrutinized by the office, and I have to justify it to them first before I can even come and sit in front of council and request that. So, and as I said, I know where the inefficiencies are in my team just through the lack of continuity on the audit. So I can assure you we will not do that. In terms of what efficiencies from council side, so I just spoke earlier about the audit tool, audit dashboard, which we use where clients load things off. I'll probably be on record. I really don't like the tool. And I tell you why. Because what it does, it puts the onus on us as the auditor to provide our clients with information requests. And clients wait for us to come and say, can I have a bank rec? Can I have this? Can I have that? That's inefficient because it means that I have to get a resource to do that, to load it. Back in the day when I started auditing, many moons ago, clients would arrive with lever arch files with all the information tied back to their balance sheet and their income statement. We don't get that anymore, and so my very simple request to my clients is, these are your accounts. What have you got to support every number in that account? Because someone has come up with either a performance information target and it will say, here's the spreadsheet that supports that number, or a ledger account balance, or a balance sheet number with a reconciliation. Here's the reconciliation. And if that's the process, that the agencies should be going through in preparing the annual report, then it's less, because the only thing I think we should be asking for during an audit, and call me old school here, is once we've selected our sample from the population, the listing we then come to and say, now can you go and pull out these samples? And that's how we should be doing it, but it doesn't quite work like that. That's, as I say, I'm showing my age here, but that's the efficiency I would be looking for first and foremost from all my clients, and not just Horowhenua.
Yeah, just something you wanted to make some comments.
I guess from our side, I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of how your team is approaching it. But we definitely, in terms of some of the early conversations leading into the audit, are definitely keen to have that conversation on an item-by-item basis. In the annual report, is how does your team gain comfort and ensure they're able to sign off each section of the audit? If we understand that well, then we'll make sure we supply the information in the way that hopefully more efficiently, continually more and more efficiently enables that to happen in a streamlined way. So I think we made some progress towards that with the team this year, but that continuity is definitely a challenge.
I think from this committee's perspective, we want to just simply be assured that there is that dialogue that's occurring, and it sounds like it is. After the next item, Councillor Grimstone, what we'll do is we'll adjourn briefly, and we'll be able to have that conversation with Clint directly without staff in the room, so we can have that really, I guess an additional layer of assurance to have that conversation around what worked well, what didn't work well, and to get some further assurance through that conversation. So just assure you that that's going to happen today. Did anyone else have any further questions? Member Jenny.
Excuse me. I just want to check in, Chair, if once the management report is actually finished, if it will be tabled at the next meeting, because I think it's quite difficult here that we've been challenged with just sort of seeing the presentation and it being tabled, and officers haven't had a chance to look at it, think about it, provide advice to us, feel a bit blindsided with it just coming up on the screen, and my old school practices tell me I should get it before the meeting. Okay, so just looking forward, if we can please also work to not do this again. We really want to have a bit of thinking time and reflecting time before we come to the meeting. And yes, I just wanted to check that we will have the full management report on the next agenda, please.
Yeah, thank you, Member Jenny. Yeah, look, I think that so my understanding from you today, Clint, is that you will present the management letter to the team this afternoon, and you're wanting to do that first. So yes, I absolutely think that we need to put this on the agenda for the next meeting. So the team organise that. Member Jenny.
Just one other further question. So overall, the findings of the audit you've explained and talked us through where they landed, and my sense of it all, it sounds pretty low risk and a really good result. It's good to hear that there's a number of items on progress, and it's appropriate they stay in progress until you've seen, audit results at a later stage. So overall, it's sounding really good result. Just in terms of the 9 new ones, I just wanted to check you spoke to most of them, and there was a couple relating to payroll that I didn't hear anything about, and I just want to understand kind of the urgency or seriousness of those. Just at a very high level, what are those about?
Through Chair, so Virginia, the issues is around master file change report reviews, and again, that's probably an issue we find that a number of clients around creditors and payroll master file changes, that the report is generated, reviewed, and checked back to supporting documentation by someone other than that. There were also some timesheet approvals and leave approvals, but again, that's for staff members working at the aquatic centre. That's on temporary basis, not material, but it's just a good control again. Now, on those issues, there's been progress made on it, and putting in place systems where everyone is submitting the timesheet, it is approved whether you're permanent or not. So there has been some progress on those as well, yeah.
Just
Sorry, I can't help myself on that one. We have done a lot of work on the payroll on master file change reports. I haven't had the conversation that this was an issue until here, but my indication would be that it's because somebody hasn't actually physically signed a piece of paper in relation to the payroll and the master change, because it's absolutely a part of the process as part of signing off a payroll and signing off timesheets, that they're reviewed. My guess is that it's an actual signing on the piece of paper issue rather than actually physically doing the process.
So, how I'm proposing that we proceed now is there are a couple of resolutions that I need to make, just procedural, and then I think what we'll do is we'll adjourn at this point, have the conversation with Clint, because the intention was to go into the monitoring report, but given that we haven't seen the management letter and there are also none of those new items are on that list, so we don't have a consolidated list at this point. I think it's best to just pause to have that conversation. So what I'll do is, if I could move 2.1 and 2.2, that this report, audit management letter for annual report, be received, and that the matter or decision be recognised as not significant. If I could have a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Tukapua. All in favour? And then what I'll do is I'll just move an amended 2.3. So at this stage it will be that the Risk and Assurance Committee notes the presentation from Audit New Zealand. Could I have a seconder for that? Councillor Mayor Burney, all in favour? So what I'll do now is, I think if we could adjourn, and if we could take, I think we'll need sort of 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. We'll have a conversation with Clint, and then we will resume the meeting. Paul and Jonathan, if you could just stay on the Zoom, we'll cut the live stream and let you know when that's happened.
Yep, cheers.
Thanks, team. Sorry, just on intermission.
The picture hasn't come, so just one second. It was
Need to re-engage the We shall recommence. Thank you for that. We will move to item 6.2 in the agenda, which is the Treasury update. If I could invite Peishan up to the table. And if I could move 2.1 and 2.2, that report the Treasury update we received and that the matter or decision be recognised as not significant. I have a seconder for that. Thanks, Mayor Burney. And all in favour? Excellent. Thank you. Peishan, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Here with me is Daniel Minty, our new Financial Services Manager. He's been the one doing writing the reports, so I thought I'll introduce him.
Welcome. Thank you. Did you want to speak to them?
So here we have 3 items in the Treasury Update report. So this is to update you on the September quarter Treasury report that was prepared by Bangkok Treasury Reporting, our Treasury advisor. Next item is the LGFA annual meeting that is happening on the 23rd of November. So as part of this, we seek approval to nominate council officers, both myself and Daniel, to be able to vote at the AGM. Third item is the Civic Financial Services Limited, their half-yearly accounts to 30th of June 2023 for your information.
Thanks, Peishan. So what we're going to do is we'll take each item in turn. And so if we could start with the Treasury Reporting Dashboard. Does anyone have any questions? I think, remember, Jenny, you had signalled and it's an area of question or focus that you were keen to raise, or that you raised before the meeting, and it might be just useful if you're happy to cover that off again here.
Thank you. I suppose what we're seeing in this result here, that net debt to operating revenue has jumped up from the year end. I think the annual report showed us it was 193% and it's now 204%. So I'm just wondering where it's going to land for the financial year end, and how far away is that from our plans that we've that are in place for this year's annual plan?
Thank you. So in terms of our forecast net debt to operating revenue for the year, that's sitting at about 197%. So versus what we're tracking at, which is the 204. The reason that we have a higher ratio was because the opening balance from 22-23 result caused a bit of an increase in borrowings due to the fact that we didn't eventuate on the asset sales that was planned, and capital ones was actually delayed as well. So in this year, we do expect to have 5 million more capital grants. It was a carryover from last year. Yes, we do still have the risk with the asset sale, where we're expecting that we won't be meeting the target by 6 million or so. A combination of already a higher borrowing balance from opening 22-23, following from that, and things that's happening now, as well as if we do plan on delivering a 50 million capex, we will have a significantly higher borrowings amount. So those are some of the factors that's causing this ratio to be high at this moment.
So I just mentioned quickly as well in this conversation we had earlier that in relation to this current year's borrowing and whether we land at 35 or whether we land somewhere higher than that, and in terms of the long-term plan presentation that you saw last week and what the borrowings picture looks like there, those two are very much in line with each other. Whenever we change one, it flows through into the other one as well. But what you saw in the presentation last week in terms of the LTP was assuming that the capital program could reach as high as 50 million, just to be more conservative. And also from a property sales perspective, we have reduced that down to only about 4 million in total over this year and next year. So that also is more conservative. So just to flag those two things for you.
And just to also just flag that we, at the most recent council meeting, council resolved for the Risk and Assurance Committee to play a role around in relation to the financial strategy, and we're just working through what that looks like and how that will work in practice. So watch this space. Anyone else have any further questions on the Bancorp report? Councillor Grimsby.
I just Rob had a question. Shane, you might be able to provide, or Jacinta as well. Just given the information within the Treasury report has changed somewhat since we received it in the last quarter, particularly in terms of when they're projecting interest rates to start to reduce. So I'm just keen to understand if that commentary has potentially had an impact on our strategy for the renewals that we've got coming up for 2024. So if I look out, we've got about $30 million that's rolling off its matured rate and would need to be renegotiated or refixed. So I guess is that playing a part in what your thinking is, and what's your strategy you're looking to apply? Are you looking to go long, or are you thinking maybe short term might be more?
Good question. I guess from our side, we've got anything that's rolling and being renewed by 30 June. We have already pre-funded and is sitting on term deposit, so that's covered for this financial year. And that was part of that funding strategy that we implemented a couple of years ago to make sure that we are well set up from that perspective. In the short term, though, if we need short-term borrowings, we are at this stage. We've just recently gone out for some debt, and at this stage we've stuck to commercial paper, which is at the lowest rates, because it's only in the short term and it's the most advantageous rates that we can get, and we know it's not going to be held for the long term. At the moment, there's probably some looking at the LGFA's borrowing rates, sort of between now and out for 4 or 5 years. And that's going to need to be something we look at probably weekly, is in that sort of 3 to 3 year span is where it's starting to look more favourable, and that is in our borrowings profile as well, where we do have a little bit of room in terms of looking at our debt profile in the longer term. So we haven't secured what we're going to do exactly in terms of next year, but we are fine for this year, and short term will be in that CP just to minimise the cost.
Any further questions? Conscious that the Mayor has challenged me to finish early today, and I'm already failing miserably. Any further questions?
I won't ask one.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that I'll move 2.3, or if you guys just hang at the table, we're going to take these one by one. So I'll move 2.3, that the committee notes the Bancorp Treasury reporting dashboard for the September 2023 quarter. Do I have a second for that? Thanks, Member Sierra. All in favour? Thank you. So what we'll do now is we'll move on to the LGFA annual meeting. Did you want to speak to that, or
Speaking as version. Yeah.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any questions? No? Sounds like we can move straight into 2.4, and I will do 2.5 as well, so en bloc. I'll read those out. That the committee notes the Local Government Funding Agency annual meeting will be held on 23 November 2023 in Wellington. And 2.5, that the committee notes the recommendations of the LGFA Shareholders Council and nominates Pei Shan Gan or Daniel Minty to vote on behalf of Council at the annual meeting. Do I have a second for that? Thanks, Councillor Young. All in favour? Super. We will then move on to the Civic Financial Services matter. And again, I'm going to open up any questions, comments here. Is there anything you wanted to flag? Councillor Grimsby?
This is the risk pool liability piece. Yeah. So I just had reading through it. I just wondered whether we needed to be thinking about provisioning within the long to plan for any potential liability share that might fall on us. Obviously, everything that's been put before us is that if that was to happen, it's almost a guesstimate as to. I just wondered whether it was something we should be prudently thinking about.
Peshan, did you want to speak about the contingent liability type, what we might do here?
We have disclosed the contingent liability on our annual report, and that's the least we can do. In terms of having a budget in the long-term plan to provide for this, at this stage, it is quite uncertain whether this event will eventuate. And so putting 5 million, 500,000, 5,000, it's an amount that we are not sure of. So unless we get clear guidance from BRISPO and Civic Financial Services Limited of an indicative amount, then yes, as soon as we get that, we can put something in. Thank you.
Just this is speaking to the independent members primarily. Is there any advice you think that this committee should be giving to councillors as part of the long-term plan process, or in terms of its budgeting around this? Do you have any views or comments that you'd like to hear? Member Jen?
I agree with the officer in terms of the uncertainty, and you need better information before you should be setting aside a provision. I think it's a wait and see, and I think for the sector we'll all be in the same space. There's a lot of uncertainty. We'd be guessing, really.
Member Steer?
Completely concur. Exactly, yeah. As Shan said, we don't know what the value is at this point.
Unless there are further questions or comments on this, I'll move 2.6 and 2.7. Any questions? No? Alright, I'll move 2.6 and 2.7 en bloc. That the committee receives the Civic Financial Services Limited half-yearly accounts to 30 June 2023, and 2.7 that the committee notes the winding up status of the risk pool and potential future liability resulting from the liability claim. Could I have a seconder for that? Councillor Young, all in favour? Super. Thank you, team. Thanks, Daniel. All right, we shall move to item 6.3, which is our Health, Safety and Wellbeing Quarterly Report for November 2023. Invite, I think it's Tanya and Ashley. And while they come out to the table, if I could move 2.1 and 2.2, that the report be received and that the matter or decision of the advisor is not significant. Thank you. Seconded by Mayor Wanden, and all in favour. Thank you. Tanya, over to you.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. I have two items that I would like to highlight which are not actually in the report today. We have a Safe Plus assessment taking place on Tuesday and Wednesday, 28th and 29th of November. So Safe Plus is a health and safety improvement toolkit that was developed by MB, ACC and WorkSafe, and it models what good health and safety looks like beyond a minimum compliance, and it guides continuous improvement in capability and performance. So the Horowhenua District Council, we have an assessment alongside MWLAS councils, so the whole group complete this health, safety and wellbeing assessment, and it is biannual. So we had an assessment in 2018 and we were assessed at developing, and then in 2021 we moved to performing, and the top title of the assessment is leading, which is where our aim is. So that is coming up. A lot of work has been done in that space, so we're looking forward to completing that assessment. This week I also received some very positive feedback from WorkSafe General Inspectorate Manager, who received feedback from his inspectors that had visited a worksite in Levin of one of our main contractors in a civil works space. He said the inspectors were visiting to focus on the management of risks associated with confined space that's created from working inside open evacuations. The inspectors reported that they were very impressed by the level of knowledge the workers on site had relating to that confined space and the effective controls they did have in place at the time of the visit. So that was a very positive feedback to have. We will receive a report when in due time that comes through from WorkSafe and our contractors. That's my two highlights. So I do take the report as being read and am happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tanya. And just a note, prior to the meeting, Councillor Tukapua made a very sensible remark about just the maturity of our health and safety activity. And so I just wanted to commend you again for your hard work and the quality of the reporting. Table, did we have any questions or comments? Did you perhaps want to talk about just briefly how the series of walkthroughs, how they've been going, and what's been coming out through those in terms of learnings or lessons or insights?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so we've this year planned a series of leadership walks, walkthroughs, health and safety moments, many a term to cover, I suppose, the variety of opportunities that we are planning to give for our elected members and our executive leadership team alongside our contractors. Sometimes they're just actually meetings where we sit and we talk about various parts of the health, safety and wellbeing program. They have been well received, the walkthroughs that have been completed. It's given an opportunity for our elected members and our ELT to discuss their views and their take on health and safety, and it will plan forward how we achieve this again next year, maybe enhanced, maybe with some different input in that space.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. And the chair of Risk Insurance has been a bit slack for the last couple of weeks. He's been overseas while these have been happening. But I would urge the other elected members, if you can, to get along to these. I think it's a really important part of us embedding health and safety practice into our daily activity, into our activities and our leadership roles. So, Councillor Grimstone, look like you have a question.
Just had a question referring to page 41 in the HBC aquatics accident for other people. We've asked this question a couple of times before, but the last 3 months we've now seen over 15 reported accidents month on month, which is, if you look at previous months, even the highs are significantly higher. So I'm just interested to understand, is there some commonality in what that's looking like, and how are we working on some hazards or mitigants to reduce those? And I do know, yes, it was school holidays. It's sometime in July and potentially the last week in September. But even if you take those out, the baseline seems high.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I may, in terms of the aquatics activity, they're very good at reporting all incidents and accidents. So that a lot of what we see coming through on People Safe, it might be a small scratch from going up the hydroslide stairs, and obviously when we go down to the organisation, reminding our teams about reporting. They literally probably report everything. They put on the better parts of our business for reporting. So that a lot of the incidents, while there are a lot, are very minor in terms of scale.
And the other part that I'll just add to that is one of the things that we see in here is the different categories, and often incidences that come through aquatics, whether it be threatening behaviour or an incident, is also a near miss. So minor stuff, and then actually some of those could go into a near miss category as well.
Unless there are any further questions or comments, I think we can move on to the next item. No resolutions here. Thank you, team. All right, we'll move to item 6.5, which is the final item in our open agenda, which is the Continuous Improvement in Audit Actions Monitoring Report. I'll move 2.1 and 2.2 that the report be received and that the matter or decision be recognised as not significant. Over seconder, thank you, Mayor Burney. All in favour? Right. Excellent. Pei Shan, I think, is in the hot seat for this one. Assume you want to take the matter as read, but did you have any particular items you wanted to highlight?
Yes, I'll take the item as read. The only thing that I want to mention is that once we've worked through the audit management letter with Clint and the team, any actions that we need to be reporting back will be added on. The other item that I would like to check is whether the committee is happy for us to remove the ones that are marked completed in this report as well. Otherwise, this report is getting quite long.
Can I just have a quick nod of the heads if everyone's happy for those to be removed? Yes, please. Councillor Grimstone, you look like you're going to start us off with a question. Will you?
It's as long as we've got a communication loop around what's actually been as long as we've got a communication loop around what has actually been closed or removed off. So I don't care what that looks like, but yeah, I'd like to see match up that they have been closed off because they've been removed.
Through you, Chair, if we do close them off in the next report, we will signal that in the cover letter, in the cover report, to make sure that you're aware.
Did members have any? Oh, we got Councillor Tukupa.
Yeah, just two really quick ones. Page 59 to 60 under the property purchase and disposals. Looking for a confirmed date. It just says it's up for review by the team. Marked red, obviously, but given that we'll be making some decisions around the corner, it would be good to get a date, a commitment there. And then the second question's on the top of page 63, the Solomon agreement, and again a red one wanted, given that it's March next year, but we are looking at town centre acquisition, if some of that work might be brought forward to obviously enact that correctly.
Thanks for the questions, through you, Chair. So yes, where we have had trouble trying to meet the deadline of what we've imposed on ourselves, we would have put in a comment as to ideally when that will happen. But as an interim measure, the communication is happening between the property team and finance to make sure that finance is involved in all the property and sell and purchase agreement to make sure that GST and tax compliance are all accounted for. In terms of the SOGAM arrangement, at the moment we are doing it as a case by case assessment, and yes, we will get onto that and make sure that we understand the requirements and we can set up to be able to have that polling agreement.
Anyone else have any further questions, comments on the items? All right. On that basis, I'll move 2.3 that the Risk and Assurance Committee notes the Risk and Assurance Committee resolutions and actions monitoring report. I have a second for that. Thanks, Councillor Young. All in favour? Super. Now we'll get to the final item in the agenda. That wasn't the last item. So we're going to 6.5, the Risk and Assurance Committee work program. Invite. I'll just interrupt for that. Thanks, Pei Shan. So I'll move 2.1 and 2.2 that the report be received and that the matter of decision be recognised as not significant. I've got to be seconder for that. Thanks, Councillor Grimstone. All in favour? Excellent, thank you. Jacinta, did you want to speak to this?
Thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair. I would just a couple of points to mention in regards to it is that we would look to in the new year get together with yourself and the deputy and have a conversation, the mayor or whoever else would like to, about the forward work program and set something for the future year. So at this stage, you can see it's shrinking in terms of size, in terms of the forward work program. But early in the new year, we'd look to try and roll that out for further 12 months. It would be good to seek from the table today endorsement around the deep dive. Is animal control still something that's a preference for the table in terms of that deep dive? So that's probably the key item that we'd like to confirm as part of this agenda. And also, if there are any other comments that you have in relation to other items that you'd like to see.
And look, conscious that members around the table have talked about the desire to lift the level of focus of the committee up. I do think that the deep dive is an important part of that health and safety space, and so unless members had an allergic reaction to that or had another area where you would like to specifically focus on, I'd be quite keen to stick with that, but keen to hear thoughts.
Yeah, look, I agree, particularly given the considerations around dog pound upgrades or non-upgrades or whatever that we need to be considering in the lead up until post quarter one. That I'd be quite happy to look at the animal control.
Member Jen.
I suppose I'm just wondering about that financial strategy piece that we've talked about, and particularly in the current economic climate, the real challenges in our finance environment, and whether that should be an area of focus, that we sort of managing risks and supporting the council with decisions.
Yeah, so look, my intention with that, and subject to a conversation with Jacinta and Monique, is I suspect that this committee's role in relation to the financial strategy and financial aspects is likely to occur outside of the context of the formal meeting, quarterly meeting, because I think that there's probably a need for some more involvement, particularly of yourselves, in some of those more sort of targeted conversations that are going to occur in workshops and other settings. So if you can leave that with me to just design what that looks like with the team, and we'll circulate an email pretty promptly around that. And just also to note your earlier point about the audit management letter that will obviously flow to the first agenda of 2024. Is there anything else in terms of the work program that anyone feels like is missing or that should be there? Councillor Tukua?
Yeah, so while this is a work program for the risk committee, I just wondered, following on from Member Jenny's point around the input for financial strategy, that if the risk committee identified perhaps that elected members needed some financial literacy to raise our capability around the decision making and some of those critical things we're facing, is that something we can formally recommend this committee to council, that we engage in some literacy training? Or it's just an informal pass on?
We absolutely can, but the intention was that we had just talked about this before, that we would look to do that anyway for the officers as part of the long-term plan, to make sure that anyone that hasn't had as much involvement in the financial side of the LTP can have more training and upskilling, but absolutely can come from this committee or come from officers.
Look, I think yeah, that we've seen that the finances and the financial the framework is complex in local government, and there is some it can be tricky to navigate, and so I think that providing that assistance and some guidance to elected members would be really valuable. And I was actually going to raise it in the context of the risk register when we came to talk about that, but I'm pleased you've raised it now, because I think certainly I don't know if we need to make a recommendation, but I think it's something that if you're happy to take away is and we can even raise it in the context of the workshop this afternoon to see if there's that appetite around the table, because I think it's certainly something that could be a practical way of lifting that knowledge and understanding. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to say on the work program. Looking comfortable? All right. On that basis, I think we have a resolution. We do, and I'll move that the Risk and Assurance Committee notes the Finance Audit and Risk Committee work program. That's 2.3. It should. Yes. So we'll start that again. So 2.3. That the Risk and Assurance Committee notes the Audit and Risk Committee work program. And can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Young. All in favour? Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the open agenda. We're now going to move into public excluded, and the reason for that is just that we've got some detailed risk information that we need to discuss. So I think
resolution. Okay.
so. I'll move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting. The general subject matter of each matter to be considered by the public excluded, the reason for passing the resolution in relation to the matter, and the specific grounds under section 48(1) of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act. The passing of this resolution follows. So that's item C1, health and safety recommendations, and C2, risk management status quarterly report, November 2023. Could I have a seconder for that? Thanks, Member Jenny. All in favour?
Aye.
Thanks.